Well, welcome to David's Community Bible Church. We are so glad you're here this morning. We're always glad you're here, but especially this morning to celebrate this awesome, incredible time with us, to celebrate God's faithfulness in 250 years. Man, that is amazing. So I had a couple things I want to go through before we get to the cool and exciting part. This is the part you have to sit through. So if you need to go to the bathroom, probably now is a good time. But this is, you're not going to want to miss anything else. It is a long service, so it's over 2-hour service. So if you do have to go to the bathroom, you're welcome to get up and go to the bathroom. So yeah, it's probably a little over 2 hours. So probably about 5 minutes more than Pastor Allen usually goes. So. It took 8 preachers to get it to Alan, to get it to Alan's one. But if the kids get restless, if you have to go to the bathroom, you can go. We understand. If the kids get restless, we have overflow downstairs with crayons and things like that. Or in the small fellowship hall, we have activities as well if you don't want to go all the way downstairs. So you can do that as well. There's some merch in the back, some cups, some Crocs, some pens, some wooden nickels. You're going to want to commemorate. Yes, that's what I'm looking for. Commemorate this moment, this historical event in the history of our church. So if you want to grab one of those on the way out, if you want Pastor Allen to sign your bulletin, he can do that. Or Corey McCluskey or anybody. It's a great event, and to have a memory of this, something to remember it by. So you'll want to stop by and get one of those on the way out. Small groups are starting this week. We have ours on Wednesday night. They're starting this week. If you haven't signed up for one, make sure you do so you can get into the first one. I'm sure there's a lot of meet and greet in the first one, a lot of fellowship, a lot of food. So sign up for one this week if you're not in one. Awana starts next week. Awana starts on Wednesday the 16th. So get your kids signed up and ready for that. Offering is in the back. If you're on your way out, you can put offering there. If you're watching online, we want to welcome you as well. You can fill out a visitor card online, and you can also give online through the app or through the website. When we're done here, Pastor Allen's going to give you some. He's going to give you some instructions, and then we have a meal in the Grove. We have a catered meal. You're going to love it. It's going to be delicious. I am a little disappointed because I saw Pastor Allen had some signs, and one said, 1 cupcake per person, please. Is that, Tammy, is that true? 1 cupcake per person? Okay. So there is a little bit of bad news, but there's a lot of good news. It's going to be a delicious meal. If you did not sign up, see Elaine Cortez. There's some extras, so we could probably slide you in there. If you you know how you do the handshake, just put like $5 in your hand and just give her a handshake. She can get you on the list. So, but definitely see Elaine, and she can hook you up with a meal as well for that. And after the meal, there is a history presentation at 2 p.m. with Brian Snyder. If you were here last night, it was a great presentation, but he had to rush it all in 15 minutes. This time, he's going to take questions and answers, and he'll get a little bit more detailed in the history. He was all excited because he found the original deed. You guys remember last night he found the original deed to the church? And some of my youth were asking me, if we steal that, do we own the church? And I don't know. I don't know. If any lawyers want to answer that question for me, we're planning a heist. So yeah, it's great. You got original documents you can look at. You can ask questions. He'll talk about them. Corey McCluskey, we found out last night he actually found some extra documents that you might hear about as well during that. So you'll want to be here at 2 p.m. here for the history presentation. And last thing I want to end with before we pray and have the pastors come up is there is no youth tonight. We will start back again next week and go to Thanksgiving. So there is no youth tonight. Celebrate this afternoon, celebrate Labor Day, and we will see you guys next week. Let's pray. God, I just thank you for this awesome opportunity to be here for 250 years that we have seen your faithfulness. God, I pray for 250 more years and even more than that. God, I pray that David's Community Church continues to be a light for you in this valley for years and years and years to come. God, thank you for the blessing that you have poured out on this church. God, I pray for hearts that are excited about what you're doing. God, I pray for hearts that want to reach this valley and reach the world for you, God. I thank you for all the pastors that are here today. I thank you for the men that have come before and paved the way for David's Community Bible Church, God. I thank you as we stand on their shoulders and celebrate this day, God. I thank you that they're here to give a testimony to your faithfulness even back then. God, I just pray. I just pray that we will continue to be a light for you in this valley. I pray this in your name. Amen.
Hello, everyone. My name is Samuel Dubendorf. I was the very first pastor of David's Community Bible Church. But back in 1779, the church was simply known as David's Reformed Church. I may look a little strange to you in 2020, but this is the way that pastors dressed in the 1770s. I'm here to help you celebrate your anniversary, 250 years as a church. God has been faithful to David's church for 250 years. The book of Lamentations says, "The steadfast love of the Lord never ceases. His mercies never come to an end. They are new every morning. Great is your faithfulness." Much has happened in 250 years. But one thing has never changed. God is faithful. David's church started as a union church along with Salem Lutheran Church. We have the same birthday as them, the 4th of May, 1770. This is the date of the first written record of our church. It was a baptismal service where 4 people were baptized. They included John Nicholas Ullman, Johann Adam Thoma, Franika Khan, and Anne Katharina Banter. Although this is the first written record of David's church, we believe the Union Church was probably much older. Back in the 1770s, the Lycans Valley was sparsely populated by settlers, mostly from the country of Germany. The settlers were called Palatines because they came from the Palatine, Germany. In the 1770s, there were more Native Americans in our valley than there were settlers. During the French and Indian War in 1750 to 1760, this was a war between France and England, many Indians fought for the French and would attack settlers in this valley. This meant that on Sundays, while people worshipped in church, there had to be armed guards, soldiers outside, in case of an Indian attack. In 1774, our church separated from Salem Lutheran Church, and we bought land and began our own church. It was called David's Reformed Church. Our first pastor came to David's in 1779. His name was Samuel Dubendorf. That's me! I came to America in 1776 from Germany in the same boat as the Hessian soldiers. The British brought over these soldiers to fight in the American Revolution. Our first church was probably a simple wooden building with dirt floors and a wood stove. It was built in 1797. After the Revolutionary War, many of the Hessian soldiers settled in the Lycans Valley. They may have been part of our church. After I was pastor at David's church, the church had many other pastors. We know of 28 of them.
And I know, yes I know, Jesus' blood can make the vilest sinner clean. And I know.
David's church even had a circuit preacher who would travel from church to church on horseback. His name was John William Hendel. In 1817, David's church wrote our Articles of Association. This was our constitution, professing what we believe as a church. This document was signed and sealed by the Deputy Chief of the Secretary of the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. Well, there's been a lot of changes since I was pastor here at David's Church. Of course, the building has changed. We built our brick church in 1866. In 1970, we built a brand new sanctuary. We had to tear down some buildings. Then, in 1980, we expanded our sanctuary again. This is the same sanctuary where we are meeting to worship now. God has been so good to David's Church for many, many years. We have had a lot of changes, but some things never change. And one that can never change is the Bible.
Matthew chapter 25, our theme this year is 250 years of God's faithfulness to David's church. That's how long we have been here as a church.
Also, the meaningful fellowship of like-minded Christians has not changed. The power of prayer in the church still comes from God. We are still reaching people for Jesus here in the valley, ministering to those who are in need, and worshiping our triune God in spirit and truth. We also try to help those around the world. We thank God for His faithfulness. For 250 years, we cannot wait to see what He has in store for us in the years to come.
That was pretty neat. That was pretty neat, wasn't it? A big thank you goes to Ruslan, one of our, many of you know, our daughter church, our sister church in Belarus, and one of the members in that church put that video together for us. So a big thank you to Ruslan who created that for us and blessed us with it. Many of you may have recognized the voice if you remember Rob Zabatowski, who comes with our Belarus missionaries. That was his voice. Probably a lot of you are like, that sounds so familiar, but where am I getting? So a big thank you for them putting that together. Let me add my thank you to Pastor Danny's thank you and welcome to this 250th celebration that we are having. And I want to open our time with God's Word and a psalm of thankfulness. Psalm 100 reads this: "Make a joyful noise to the Lord, all the earth. Serve the Lord with gladness. Come into His presence with singing. Know that the Lord, He is God. It is He who has made us, and we are His. We are His people and the sheep of His pasture. Enter His gates with thanksgiving and His courts with praise. Give thanks to Him. Bless His name, for the Lord is good. His steadfast love endures forever, and His faithfulness to all generations." And that's been our theme for this year. Great is God's faithfulness to us. And we don't just rest on 250 years and breathe a sigh of relief and think that there's nothing more for us. We look to that as a challenge to us, that those who came before us were faithful to God and God was faithful. Now it's our job to be faithful and to continue on the mission that God has given us as a church. This morning is going to be great. It's going to be a fantastic morning. As Pastor Danny said, it's going to go a little bit longer than usual, but it's going to be great. And those online, welcome as well. This will also be recorded, so you can watch it later as well on Facebook and on our webpage. But before we begin to have our friends and former pastors and friends of David's come and share with us, I want you to remember with me what exactly unites us to our past 250 years, but what unites us as pastors and church people as well. And that's the gospel of Jesus Christ. That's why we're here. That's what we do. That's what's important to us. That's our foundation, that God has blessed us but given us a mission, and that mission is to be His children, to spread the gospel to the world. We've been studying through the book of Acts, and Acts 1:8 lays out the entire framework for that book and lays out really the entire framework for the Church of Jesus Christ, that you will be my witnesses. When the Holy Spirit comes on you, you receive power, and you will be my witnesses, Jesus says, in Jerusalem, Judea, Samaria, and to the ends of the earth. That is our call. That is our mission as a church as well, that Jesus gave to us 2,000 years ago. And that's what unites us, the gospel of Jesus Christ. This is our mission. This is what brings us together. The simple message of the gospel that we are sinners, right? That's where the gospel starts. It starts with the bad news that all people are sinners. For all have sinned, right, and fallen short of the glory of God. And the wages of sin is death. But we know that God did not leave us in our sinful state, in our helpless state, because he provides a Savior for us, right? Romans 5:8 says that he demonstrates his love for us, that he gave us a Savior, that he died for us, that he spilled his blood for us, that he came and was born of a virgin, born perfect, lived a perfect life, and died on the cross for us. That's the message of John 3:16, right? For God so loved the world that he gave his one and only Son, that whosoever believes him should not perish, but have everlasting life. He has provided a way of salvation, but it's up to us to believe and receive, repent, and invite Jesus Christ into our hearts. Romans 10:9 says that if we confess with our mouth that Jesus is Lord, and we believe in our hearts that God raised him from the dead, you will be saved. Those who call on the name of the Lord will be saved. This is the message of salvation. This is what unites us, that we have received Jesus Christ as Lord and Savior. And if you have not, and you're here maybe just to see some old familiar faces and sort of enjoy the celebration, you're welcome, but don't mistake for a minute what we are doing here. We're not just celebrating the past and having a feel-good service here. We are proclaiming the gospel of Jesus Christ and his faithfulness to us. That is why we are here, and that is what unites us, and that what unites all the speakers that you're going to hear from and the videos that you're going to hear from shortly, and that's what we're about. So make sure you know that before you leave here today. Well, we want to start our time with our oldest living pastor, Pastor Benner. Unfortunately, because of the challenges that we've been facing for the past few months, he was not able to be with us. His plan was to be here, but he could not. So Pastor Christian and I were able to go and meet with him and get a greeting from him on video. He was our pastor here from 1959 to 1965. He came fresh out of seminary and was 25 years old when he became pastor here at David's Church, along with the Zion Church in Rife. He pastored both those churches, and he and his wife Pauline reside here in Pennsylvania. And we're very gracious and very excited to be able to share with us today. He wrote a letter to us, and in the letter, a lot of his memories he wrote down for us so that we would have them. And I want to close, before we see him on the video here, I want to close with how he closed his letter. He says this: "Our thanks to those who touched our lives and the lives of our 4 young sons. Those little boys who were 5 years old, 3, 2, and under 1 years old when we moved are now 61, 59, 57, and 55 years old, and have blessed us with 8 grandchildren and 2 great-grandchildren." He says, "Thanks and my deepest appreciation to both congregations, David's and Zion, for welcoming my pastoral style based on the biblical shepherd and his flock of sheep. As Christ Jesus was my good shepherd, so I sought to lead the congregations of David's and Zion churches in the same manner. Some of you here today helped me get started in the path of pastoral ministry. That path has lasted over 38 years of full-time ministry and 16 years of part-time ministry, with 10 different congregations, before retiring for the 3rd time in 2013. Thanks to all those who helped me and who have passed from our sight and sound of our voices to rest now in the arms of the Good Shepherd, Jesus Christ, our Lord and Savior." Pastor Benner, again, wishes that he could be here, and in your program, you'll see in his bio there, he would love to receive any correspondence from you. So we added his address and telephone number and email. So if you remember Pastor Benner, even if you don't remember Pastor Benner, please drop him a line and send your well wishes to him as well. So please, if you get a chance, send him a letter or let him know how much he means to you. Let's go ahead and watch that video of Pastor Benner.
Good morning, everyone. This is the Reverend Richard Benner and his wife Pauline, greeting you on the occasion of celebrating the 250th year of David's Church, serving the Lord, the people of Millersburg, Lycans Valley, and beyond. The Benners served David's Church and the people of Zion Rife from July 1959 till January 1965. You were the first of 11 congregations that we would minister to over a period of 50 years of pastoral service. Some of you will remember that we had 4 sons born to us while we were at David's Church. Now you know that means 4 successful trips up and over Peters Mountain and down to the Polyclinic Hospital in Harrisburg. Our phone number, address, and email address will be printed in the handout that you received. Please get in touch with us. We would love to hear from you. Welcome again to this very special worship experience. Let us join our hearts in prayer. Let us pray. Gracious God, precious Savior Jesus Christ, inspiring Counselor, Holy Spirit, come to this place and this gathering and celebrate with us this historic day. Thank you, Lord, for blessing the pastors and people who have sustained this ministry throughout its storied past. Inspire those who carry on the witness to Christ's good news today and all of this congregation's tomorrows. Lord, guide them, strengthen them, and may the peace and presence of Jesus Christ our Savior abide with them this joyful day and evermore. Amen.
Well, good morning. My name is Pastor Christian House, and I am so privileged to be here today. Would you stand and join as we sing "To God Be the Glory"? And I understand that this is a very special hymn. For many years, this, I believe, was kind of like a theme song for this congregation. The lyrics are printed in your handout. And so if you want to watch those lyrics, they're in there. Or if you want to use the hymn book in front of you, it's hymn number 66. Let's sing together. Every voice. Perfect redemption. Oh, perfect redemption, the purchase of blood to every believer, the promise of God, the vilest offender who truly believes that moment from Jesus a pardon receives. Praise the Lord, He has done great things here at David's. Amen. We serve a faithful God. You can be seated this morning.
Amen. Great singing. I don't know how the singing is downstairs in the overflow, but I'm sure you're singing as well. So great singing today. We have gotten several proclamations and recognitions for this year, and I'd like to invite our consistory chairman, Bruce Walter, to come up, and we're going to go through some of these proclamations and share with you all. So I'll hold them and you read them. Does that sound good?
We solicited responses from a various number of public officials, surprisingly enough, including the Duchess of Sussex. You may know that her grandfather, Ralph Markle, is buried out here. While we didn't get a response, we got a very nice, polite note from Buckingham Palace which said, the Duchess is not doing Duchess things these days. In any event. The first is from, I'm going to have to hold it. The President of the United States. Is Melania and I send our warmest greetings to David's Community Bible Church in celebration of your 250th anniversary. We are grateful for the many years your congregation has served its people and neighbors. Our nation has a long history of drawing strength from faith, and I commend your efforts to instill the sacred values of our country holds dear. Your congregation has been a central pillar in your community. It has provided a place of comfort and healing, as well as great joy, fellowship, and peace. Your assembly is central to life's most meaningful moments and milestones. As you reflect on the many memories you have made together, may you continue to uplift all who enter and remain a place of service to God and country. Best wishes for the future, and God bless. And signed, Donald J. Trump. The second is from U.S. Senator Pat Toomey, a celebration of the 250th anniversary of David's Community Bible Church in Millersburg, Pennsylvania. It gives me great pleasure to recognize David's Community Bible Church, its leadership and congregants, as you celebrate 250 years of faith, service, and contributions to the community. Congratulations and best wishes, Pat Toomey, United States Senator. And from the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania House, our representative is Sue Helms. It says, whereas the House of Representatives of Pennsylvania is always pleased to acknowledge those revered places of religious worship that contribute to the well-being of their communities and ultimately to the people of this great Commonwealth. And whereas David's Community Bible Church, established in Millersburg in 1770, is being honored upon the momentous occasion of its 250th anniversary. And whereas David's Community Bible Church was founded in 1770 in Upper Paxton Township and was originally incorporated as the General Reformed David's Church in 1817 by former Governor Simon Snyder. Presently following the spiritual guidance of the Reverend Alan Briggs, the members of Community Bible Church have enjoyed a long history of service to God and their fellow citizens. The church has been blessed with ministers and lay people who strive in the manner that gives testimony to their spiritual beliefs. Their faith, determination, generosity, and stewardship have enabled the church to become a vital and inspiring presence in their community. Now, therefore, the House of Representatives of the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania heartily congratulates David's Community Bible Church upon the joyous celebration of its 250th anniversary, and the House offers best wishes for a continued tradition of devoted service to God and humanity. That's from Representative Sue Helms.
And we have a couple more presentations, but at this time we'd like to invite up the town supervisor and chairman of the township board, Bob Stoner. He has a presentation to pass along as well.
This is indeed a privilege. One of the many hats I've worn down through the years now as chairman of the board of our township. It's an honor to be able to read this proclamation, which was passed back in May. Upper Paxton Township, Dauphin County, Pennsylvania proclamation. Whereas David's Community Bible Church was founded in 1770 in Upper Paxton Township, Lancaster County, now Dauphin County, Pennsylvania, for the presentation of the gospel of Jesus Christ. And whereas David's Community Bible Church, along with Salem Lutheran Church, received a patent for a 161-acre tract of land called Good Intent in Upper Paxton Township, Dauphin County, from the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania in 1805. And whereas David's Community Bible Church was originally incorporated as the German Reformed Church of Upper Paxton Township, Dauphin County, Pennsylvania in 1817 by then Governor Simon Snyder. And whereas the congregation continued to present the faithfulness of God through several affiliations and name adjustments in subsequent decades, and whereas the congregation of David's Community Bible Church has chosen to celebrate its 250th anniversary of ministering the gospel of Jesus Christ to residents of this region and around the world, and whereas on this day, in spite of challenges and spiritual opposition, the cross is raised high in celebration of great is thy faithfulness, looking forward by faith and confidence in God's leading to continue the mission of reaching the lost. Now, therefore, I, Robert A. Stoner, Chairman of the Board of Supervisors of Upper Paxton Township, in agreement with the other supervisors, do hereby recognize, congratulate, and celebrate with this congregation of David's Community Bible Church on the occasion of their 250th anniversary. Signed on the 12th day of May in the year of 2020, Robert A. Stoner, Chairman, John Orr, Vice Chairman, and Robert Coleman, Supervisor. It's a pleasure and an honor to be here, to be such a deep part of this church. And it's a joy to look out here and see you doing so well. God blessing you. I pray for a powerful anointing on you in the years ahead. God bless.
Lord willing, we'll have one more proclamation, and our state senator, John DeSanto, will be here in a little bit, hopefully, and he'll has a proclamation for us as well. So hopefully we'll be able to fit that in near the end there. So, okay, we're going to move on in our speaking list here. Thank you, Bruce. If you were here last night, I know your belly, your midsection is probably still hurting from all that laughter last night, all those local jokes and barbs that we had last night from Corey McCluskey. What a blessing to have him here, to have him come in and agree so graciously, so quickly to come and to do this for us, and also to be flexible to come this weekend after we change from May. So what a blessing to have Corey with us from Arizona, and to be able to come and share, not just because he's a funny guy and really well liked, but that he was from Millersburg. I mean, he's from here. So we produced this guy. I mean, you know, he's the Danny Kaye of Millersburg. I mean, come on. I mean, he's got it all. He's got it all. You know, that's why only a weekend come in. I don't want you comparing me to him over time, because, you know, it wouldn't be good. So, but we're so blessed to have him here and to bring his humor and his insight. If you're looking in your program, you can see that he has been on stage and in front of the camera for nearly 40 years. Stand-up comedy on marriage and his daughters and small towns and life in the public eye is always hilarious. He is the weather guy for the Fox station in Phoenix and is here to escape the city's hottest summer on record. I don't know, we got 110 today. Did you make it in Phoenix? Probably. So they've set in all the heat records in the world, I believe. It's the hottest place on record right now. Corey's family began attending David's church in the early 70s, and many of his most important moments have been tied to this place. Corey and his wife, Mary Jane, have 3 daughters, 1 son-in-law, 1 golden doodle, 2 chihuahuas, 1 smart, 1 not so smart. I have a pug, and he's the dumbest dog I've ever seen. He runs into things, he flops over, so he'll eat anything as well. So we have to keep an eye on him. And the world's first and best granddaughter. So Corey, come and share with us now.
Well, I'll try to keep my comments briefer than that lovely introduction. Thank you very much. This is such a pleasure for me. I'm so happy and thankful to be here. I love your choir. You guys were fantastic. And there are so many churches today. It's so rare to see a choir at the front of a church. So this is refreshing. And I love seeing so many familiar faces out here. This is I don't know that I was ever allowed to be at this part of the church when I was attending the church. This was a rarity for sure. But I have so many people to thank. First of all, Pastor Alan and Christian and Elaine and Danny and everyone for inviting me out. I really appreciate it. We had a great time last night. And Bob Stoner as well. In fact, I credit Bob really with my, whatever abilities I have to get up in front of people. They're due to this guy who kind of pushed me forward and encouraged me to sing and kind of jump out there and use whatever abilities that I have. And I was here, my family started attending, as you might have just heard, in the 1970s, before this building was here. And I sang, I was right about in this area back here, but Bob got me up at a cantata. You know what a cantata is? You've heard of them. It's a word that's unused outside of the Lycans Valley, I've learned. It seems like a foreign expression to most other people, but we really had some lovely times. And by the way, I would encourage you, 250 years, it's mind-blowing. In Phoenix, nothing is 250 years old. The Grand Canyon, but barely in Arizona. I mean, you got to really search for something that old. When I told people I was coming back here to celebrate a 250th anniversary, boom, minds were blown. But you can walk right out here, and such a lovely day. I'd encourage you to do it before you leave this afternoon. At the very end of the churchyard down here, there are probably a half dozen flags planted down there next to headstones of men who fought in the Revolutionary War. It's unbelievable. And by the way, any British citizens here? Anyone here grow up in England? Yeah, I wouldn't raise my hand either. Revolutionary War, War of 1812, we're 2-0 against those people. So don't try it again. All right? Lots of fond memories here. Among those, the Graveyard 500. Now, if you're about 11, 12, 13 years old, it's a dark night. This is when you challenge your friends to take a lap around the church and around the graveyard and then back. Not many teenagers would do it. This man's brother, this is David Bear. You'll hear from him later, but John Bear and I, we made a few laps. So if you're a young person, give it a whirl. It's scary, it's spooky, but you can certainly make it. But I'll close by just with a word of thanks. One thing I love about David's church is the way you embrace people, new people. And, I came from a family, nice family. My dad taught at the high school. My mom was a doll. And in fact, we said goodbye to both of them right here. And I was married here, my wife and I, 35 years ago and a week, right, on this very spot. But in the early 70s, church wasn't a thing at my house. My dad golfed every Sunday morning and, didn't have any real relationship with church at all. But some nice ladies gathered my mom in and explained the gospel to her and asked her to a Bible study. And sure enough, she was smart enough to really take in that message. And all of a sudden, something was different about Mom. There was something inside her that was happening. And she couldn't let the family go. And she began encouraging all of us to attend church. And wouldn't you know it, I was gathered in just like any other youngster. I was about 12 years old. and headed down to a little weekend retreat at a place called Hilltop Ranch in Maryland. Yes, you've all been subjected, some of you, to Hilltop Ranch. I made light of it last night. But there, I was young at the time, speaker, his name was Bill Knutson, good friend of our pastor, former pastor Brooks Solberg. But anyway, he gave out the gospel message. There I was, about 12 years old, and I already knew that I needed a savior, that I needed help to get through this world. And kabam, that was the weekend for me. And it wasn't long before my dad followed suit. And so I'm ever grateful to David's Church and the wonderful people here. And so thank you for setting our family off on a path of redemption and a bright future too. And so I wish for all of you, I don't blame you, son. Believe me, you're not the first person to walk out on my remarks. But I thank and congratulate all of you on 250 years, and I sure hope that 250 from now, people are still gathering here in this little country church and continuing to press forward for the gospel. So thanks, everybody. Again, not much theology from me. I'm saving that for the speakers that follow. But again, God bless you, everybody.
Thank you again, Corey. Thank you so much for last night as well. Well, our next speaker, Pastor Solberg, served here from 1965 to 1986, and Brooke and Ruth faithfully served here at David's for 21 years. And during those years, they raised 4 children and were instrumental in the growth of the church, requiring 2 building programs. As I see the history records, we got done with the first expansion. It seemed like as soon as it was done, you had to plan another one. It was already too small. I think you outgrew it before it was even done. So, and then we built this beautiful sanctuary here. In 1986, Pastor Solberg accepted a call to serve in a church in Allentown, Pennsylvania, and since that time they have served in 16 intern pastorates, providing pastoral care also with the EFCA workers in Asia, and worked with the inner city ministry. Currently, Brooke is pastor emeritus at Faith Evangelical Free Church in Allentown. And David's Church was blessed to have Brooke and Ruth back here to serve us as intern pastors in the time between pastors a few years ago, and brought a whole nother generation of folks that fell in love with Ruth and Brooke in that time. So thank you so much for serving us, and thank you also for being a continued encouragement to the pastors here and to the people here. Your legacy, we'll only know when we get to heaven the legacy that you've had on so many folks. So Pastor Brooke, come and share with us now.
It's so good to see all your faces this morning. I looked at this choir, and a funny thing came to my mind. Not the choir, but we used to sit up here. And one Sunday morning, I came in, and I guess Bob was here, and there was a note being passed through the choir from the back row or the side row up to the front row. And I was tapped on the shoulder and was given this note. And it was from Ruth. And it says, "You have shaving cream behind your ear." So I just left it there. Nuts. Yeah, I still have it, as a matter of fact. And one time I spoke at the Lions Club, and a guy said to me, he said, I could talk as long as I wanted, but they all left at 8. So I thought, better get right to the point. You probably don't know this about Bob Stoner, But Bob came to work with us, and we really had a great team. And the first week Bob came to see me, he said, "You know, I don't read music." I said, "Really?" He said, "No, I'm just kidding." Yeah. So I thought when I looked at you this morning, like I did when I was here, you all came today with a need. Every time I preached, I thought about the needs. And to make it very simple, they all begin with the letter A. 3 things. Everybody here needs affection. Everybody here needs acceptance. And everybody here needs affirmation. Somebody to say to you, "Good job." And in the front of every Bible I've ever had, when I preached here, I had a note inside the front leaf addressed to myself. And it says this: "Be kind, Brooke, because everybody you meet is fighting a battle. So don't add to his battle. If you came here with 3 suitcases, maybe I can carry 1. But I can help to make your light loader." We came here when I was 29, and Ruth was 61, I think. Oh, she's not speaking, I am. Yeah. She's 2 years younger. She was 27. And how I got to come here, I was in the United Church of Christ, and I saw there was an opening in Millersburg, Pennsylvania. And I thought, you know, I'm from the city, from the jungles of 52nd Street in Brooklyn, New York. And the address at the time was RD1. I thought, that sounds like it's in the country. That'll be nice. And I was a student pastor in Marietta, PA, and I decided to come up and check it out. I had no understanding of where Millersburg was. Make a long story short, I drove into town. I didn't know where to turn. I just came incognito. I didn't tell anybody why I came. I just wanted to check out the church. What does it look like, et cetera, on a cold February morning. And I got to the square. I didn't know what to do. So there was a Continental Loan Company. Anybody remember Continental Loan Company? Anybody here from Millersburg? Anyway, I went in the office there, and there was a girl sitting behind the counter, and I said, "Excuse me," I said, "Can you tell me where David's United Church of Christ is?" She says, "I hope so." She said, "That's my church. I belong there." Her name today is Joan Hoke. Her name then was Joan Zimmerman. And she gave me the address of the church, and I went out, and I saw the church, and I just kind of drove around the parking lot. Nothing was open. Then I told Ruth that week, when we came up the next week, just to look at it again. But now Ruth was with me. No idea how God would use it in our lives. And I said, I wonder if the church door is open. And I rattled the door, pulled it open, and there was Pastor Benner standing, facing me. He was just coming out of the church. He had just recently resigned, and he said, "Can I help you?" So I told him why we were there. And in about 3 weeks, a search committee came down to Marietta, PA. 3 from the Rife Church, 3 from David's Church. Merv Adams was one of the guys from David's Church. And in about less than 2 months, I think, we were here to candidate, and we were accepted to come here. Little did I ever realize what an impact this church would have on our lives. Ruth and myself, and our kids. I can't explain to you the impact and the love that we have for all of you today, adequately today. I want to just share two things of the many things that I could share. Hilltop Ranch was a great time, but I can't get into that. Oh, I must tell you one. I had I organized the whole thing, but I always ended up with a cabin of kids besides running the program. And I had a cabin of 13-year-old, in other words, this was their first Hilltop experience. And I knew about the shaving cream and the balloons with water, and they would be squirting each other with water pistols as soon as I turned the lights out. And I said, I'm not going to stand for this, no more. I'm done with this nonsense. So these were all first-year kids. Kenny Adams was one of them. And I stood up on the floor, and they never saw me so serious. And I knew they had water pistols and balloons filled with water and shaving cream. And I said, I want to tell you one thing. I said, I'm going over there and turn that light out. And they're all looking at me, 10 kids out of their bunks. And I want you to be horizontal and unconscious. And I thought when I turned the light out, right? I turned the light out, crawled in my bunk, not a sound. I think I scared them. Now, they started falling asleep. I couldn't sleep. I saw 1 o'clock in the morning, 2 o'clock in the morning. I got no sleep for the whole night. But those kids, I'll never forget them, and so precious to me. And the other was about the Grove. I walked up to the Grove when I first came, and I said, who owns this? And they said, we do. And I said, well, what do we do? And I didn't know. I just said, well, we have a picnic every year. I said, oh, that's good. And I said, would you mind if we had worship services there on Sunday nights? And one of my admonitions is you start small and work up. So the first summer we did that. We started with one service in June, one in July, and one in August. And then the next year we had them every single Sunday night from the end of June to Labor Day weekend for about 22 or 23 years. Just to mention a couple of people that were here. Elizabeth Elliot, a world-known missionary, came and spoke at our Grove. You guys who play basketball, Darrell Imhoff, who you don't remember, but Darrell Imhoff was 6'11", played in the NBA, and he had the infamy of gardening Will Chamberlain when he scored 100 points in a game. He was at the Grove and spoke. And he stayed at our house. Bob Vogel, who played for the Baltimore Colts at the time, he came and stayed. But I think the most memorable person was Dr. Richard Wurmbrand. He stayed at our house. He was in a communist prison for 11 years. For 11 years, he never saw a person. He was in a cell all by himself. And one day, they took him out of the cell, and they said, over a loudspeaker, they said, communism, yes, Jesus, no. Communism, yes, Jesus, no. Communism, yes, Jesus, no. Bright lights, and they filled his cell with water up to his chin. They put tongs on both sides of his neck and lifted him up off the pavement so that just his toes could touch. And then when he passed out, they unloosened the tongs, and he slipped in almost unconsciousness to the pavement. And then they filled his cell with water right up to his chin. So he had the choice of standing and being alive, or staying down and drowning to death. And the only reason I knew that was he's in the parsonage over here. He's laying on the couch. And I looked at him and I thought, what a saint. And I saw these 2 holes in his neck. And I said, Dr. Werman, did you have surgery? Then he told me the experience that he had. Just one other thing. Working with the pastors in our community was a great blessing to me. I don't know how God arranged it, but the guys who were here when I was here were very godly men. And we started to meet at First Methodist Church on Friday at noon for prayer, just to pray. And we decided to have a week of meetings. I can't remember who we called for the meetings from outside. But we held the meetings at Hebron Methodist Church for some reason. And I don't know what a real revival is, maybe, but if we ever had one, it was right there at that time. For the whole community. After the service, people didn't want to leave. And we had what we called an afterglow service downstairs in the basement of the Hebron Church, where people could just come and talk and pray or do whatever. But my greatest snapshot photo in my mind is Ruth and I going down the main street of town, past the Mid-Penn Bank, and watching a high school kid with his gym sack over his shoulder, just leaving basketball practice, and he's running down the street to get to Hebron Church so he could get there on time. And Ruth and I counted at least 40 people from that time period that have gone into full-time Christian ministry. I think as a result of 7 young pastors that decided to get together to pray. Well, there's a lot of other things I could say, but I think I ought to stop there because you all leave at 8. No.
Amen. What a blessing to have a choir. Woo. Good stuff. Well, our next speaker, we're really putting through the paces today. We're using them in all sorts of capacities, but he's going to come now and speak to us as Pastor Stoner. So I want to read his bio here. Bob Stoner served David's from 1978 to 1987. He arrived in Millersburg in 1970 after accepting a music teaching position. And in 1976, he left teaching to begin his Master's of Divinity. He married Robin in 1978 and was ordained in 1979. He served here at David's Church as youth pastor, music minister, and Christian education director. Just to point out, we now have, those are 3 different staff positions now. So you can imagine the workload that Bob had on him at that time. Since resigning from David's in 1987, he has served 3 different congregations as pastor and is actively involved in the community, having served on school board and a 4-year term as mayor and on the board of supervisors for Upper Paxton Township. Currently, Bob keeps busy doing pulpit supply and substitute teaching and directing musicals. Bob and Robin Stoner are a great blessing, not just to David's, but to this valley. And the relationships they've formed with the people of this valley are invaluable to a lot of us. They have shared their lives and their talents and their gifts with not just people here at David's, but people throughout Millersburg and around this valley. So a big thank you to them. And personally, a thank you for Tammy and myself. Robin was actually the first person we met outside of the church in the search committee as we came to look for homes. Really, I think even before we were accepted here. I guess that was confidence. I don't know why, but we were looking at homes before we were even officially, I think, accepted here. And Robin was our realtor. So what a providential thing that God put us together with Robin to look for homes as well. So Pastor Bob, come and share with us now.
After directing anthems like that, you get such an emotional high. I need to say something funny to kind of come down and be serious with you for a moment. Brooke, I opened up a hymn book. Remember, precious Lord, take my hand. It just hit you, thank you. We were sitting up there in those hallowed chairs, and this clown of a preacher leaned over to this young whippersnapper music guy and says, "Precious Lord, take my hand. Do you see who wrote it?" It was Tommy Dorsey. Being a musician and loving jazz, Tommy Dorsey. So I stand up to the congregation. We're going to open our hymn books to 463, and we're going to sing Precious Lord, Take My Hand. And I want you to know that it was written by a great musician, Tommy Dorsey. He's back there going, no, it was a different Tommy Dorsey. I never trusted him in the pulpit after that, all right? It was last month, August, 50 years ago that I arrived in Millersburg as a new band director and music instructor, choirs, the whole bit. What incredible years they were. In my first month of being part of the community, I turned from a faithful church attender for 21 years to become a born-again believer because of the teenagers of this community. That's a long story. I can't tell you about it right now. But boy, did my life change after that. It took about 1 year until I discovered David's Church in those days, and that was thanks to a young man who was a high school senior in 1970, Dixon Miller. Some of you remember Duffy and Jerry was his son. And I wound up coming over here and discovering what this church over in the other sanctuary in the middle was all about. I wasn't here long until I found the choir loft. And in a few years, I began leading the choir. And then the music ministry, and I was involved with Christian education, the whole bit. It was quite exciting. My ultimate blessing here at David's Church was a relationship with Brooke and Ruth. The Solberg family, their 4 kids, their dog Duchess, Boxer. We had incredible times together. I ate more meals cooked by Ruth Solberg than you can even imagine, but I just always happened to stop in to check on something around 4:30 in the afternoon. And those were years I will never forget. I am blessed. I am a different person because of that relationship, and I give thanks to them for it, and love you guys to pieces. This relationship, this mentoring, the guiding of this young teacher ultimately led to my leaving teaching in 1976 and enrolling in seminary in pursuit of my Master's of Divinity degree. Jumping ahead, I could tell you a lot about all those things, but 1978 was an amazing year for me. I finally, at age 30, married, found the woman of my love. Robbie and I were married December 23rd in the old sanctuary. Somebody said, "Why did you get married on December 23rd, right in front of Christmas?" I said, "Well, honest, very simple. We didn't have much money, and the church was already decorated beautifully." So we were married on the 23rd. Then we both went back to school for a semester, Robbie earning her nursing degree, which she loves to this day, loves to forget about, actually. And I, in that next semester, finished up my Master's of Divinity degree. And then I became part of the staff of this congregation. I was ordained by David's Church in 1979, and I became the congregation's first associate pastor back at that time. The youth ministry, the music ministry, and the Christian education were all areas that were assigned to me by this man in front here. And it was soon after that we embarked on the building plans in 1980 to build this sanctuary that we're in today. What a great experience that all was. I have such fond memories of this place. The youth retreats, which have gotten their share of time already. Bible schools, which were very important to us. The Evangelical Teacher Training Association, those were classes where we taught our staff, our Sunday school teachers, how to be more effective as teachers. The Abundant Life Teen Music Ministry. I don't know how many years we ran Abundant Life, but there were some great guys and gals in it. Some of them are here today. We sang. We had just an awesome time singing to cassettes. Remember those cassettes? We sang to cassettes back in those days, and we actually took a trip. Went down to Ocean City, New Jersey, and we sang down there. We sang on the music pier of Ocean City, New Jersey. Most of the people in the audience were Jewish. They loved the ministry. They loved the kids, and we just praise God for that incredible opportunity. But there were choir musicals virtually every year. And those incredible, I call them incredible because they meant so much to me, those choir orchestra extravaganzas that we did every Palm Sunday weekend, Saturday night, Sunday afternoon, again Sunday night. And we filled this church 3 times with those opportunities. We had a large choir that we brought together, and it was exciting. Well, as a music and worship pastor, I have been always ever mindful of the role that musicians play in the kingdom of God. We're not just the get ready for the preacher kind of stuff, but we're setting the spiritual stage, I believe, of what God wants to do on that particular day. In 2 Chronicles chapter 20, I looked this up a couple weeks ago when I was preaching, and I just thought it was effective today, but there was King Jehoshaphat. What a name, right? King Jehoshaphat and the people of Israel were overwhelmed in this 20th chapter by their enemies. They were building up against them, and how could they move on? What would they do? So in chapter 20, verse 12, Jehoshaphat says, "For we are powerless before the vast number that comes to fight against us. We don't know what to do, but we look to you." A few verses later, Do not be afraid or discouraged because of this vast number, for the battle is not yours, but God's. Can I say that to this church today? In this nation today, the battle is not yours. The election is not yours, although you're a part of it. The battle we face in this nation today is God's. We are called as worshipers. Love these guys. They've been so faithful. We are called as worshipers to lift up the name of Jesus in praise and worship and song. We see in verse 18, Jehoshaphat bowed with his face to the ground, and all Judea and the inhabitants of Jerusalem fell down before the Lord to worship him. Verse 21, then he consulted with the people and appointed some to sing for the Lord and some to praise the splendor of his holiness. And they went out in front of the armed forces. They kept singing, "Give thanks to the Lord, for his faithful love endures forever." Church, brothers, sisters in Jesus Christ, we have that responsibility today, because the moment that they began their shouts and praises, the Lord set an ambush against the Ammonites, the Moabites, and the inhabitants of Mount Seir, those who came to fight against Judah, and they were defeated. They were defeated because the battle was God's battle, not their battle. We look at America today, and I'm done. We look at America today and we go, wow, there's so much before us. We don't understand how it's going to all come out. But I challenge you today, the battle is God's battle in this nation. We are one nation under God. It is his battle, but he's calling forth you and I, believers, worshipers, all of us, as part of the kingdom of God. It's up to us to lift up the standard of our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. Lift up his standard and see the victory that is our Lord's. I thank you for the privilege for all these years. I'll be back as much as I can. I just love this place and love what God is doing here. You are a special people. God bless you, and may God pour a powerful anointing on this church in the days ahead. God bless you.
Thank you, Pastor Stoner. Our next speaker, Dr. David Baer, represents the many, many missionaries that David's has sent forth through the years. I'm no expert at churches and pastoral mission. I'm learning a lot, but I think, as Pastor Brooke alluded to, one of the sure signs of a healthy, good church where God is working is the amount of missionaries, pastors, the men and women that go into full-time ministry out of that church. And David's, I think you said 40 at one time, and that number's been increasing. The amount of men and women that have sat in these same pews and heard these same sermons that you listen to, sang the same songs, have gone into ministry is one of the signs that God has and is still blessing our church, I think. Dave and Karen are missionaries with United World Mission. David teaches Old Testament and biblical languages at the Biblical Seminary of Columbia in Medellin and the Arab Baptist Theological Seminary in Beirut. He also directs the Theological Education Initiative for UWM. The Bears work from Medellin, Colombia for half of each year, and also from Connecticut for the other half. You can pray for them because, as you can guess, this year has probably messed up a lot of that. But keep praying for them. Dave's parents, Mim and Dorothy Baer, brought their family to David's Community Bible Church in the 1970s, and there's been no looking back. David's has been home to the Bears in too many ways to count. Dave and Karen have 6 children, 10 grandchildren, and 1 dog at a time. I think there's an undercurrent theme here of dog ownership here. Not a lot of cat people, apparently, at David's. So, Dave, like Corey, grew up here at David's, and I know a lot of you probably are thinking, man, there's probably a lot of stories to mine here. There's probably some good ones, and we've heard a few of them, but I'm sure there's a lot of stories. But since growing up at David's, David has traveled the world for the cause of Jesus Christ and his gospel. And I'm thankful, personally thankful, on David's church, on behalf of the church, is thankful for the short time Dave and Karen spent here as sort of our missionaries in residence, we called them. And were a blessing to us, to encourage us, to meet with us, to mentor us. And their encouragement was invaluable at that time. And I'll just pass along too, be in prayer for Karen. Some health concerns for her have kept her from attending, so pray for her, and also for Dorothy, Dave's mom. Please be in prayer for her. She's struggling with health concerns now as well. Dave, come and share with us.
Thanks, Pastor, and good morning to all of you. Millersburg and the Lycans Valley are together the smallest and the most beautiful place that I've known. I don't think I have to explain the beauty, especially on a morning like this, but I will tell you that on my way to Church Street over the years, I can't help but make the entrance by way of the drive down along the river and make that the last view of Millersburg that I have on my way out. I don't think I have to explain the beauty of this extraordinary green sculptured valley. But I want to say something about small. Millersburg's small, 2,500 people? This valley is narrow and not so long. It's a small place in so many ways. And so I am absolutely astonished by the reach of David's church. Global, international, around the world over so many years and over recent decades. Extraordinary reach. I don't think you'll ever know in this world how that has tied into God's purposes in his world. But let me just try to give you a little glimpse on behalf of those missionaries, both sent out from here and then missionaries who've been supported in so many ways from here that Alan mentioned just moments ago. I had the privilege of leading an organization for 12 years called Overseas Council. I discovered, and Overseas Council worked with seminaries and seminary leadership in about 130 different places in the world. One of the founders I discovered along the way was a guy some of you knew. His name is Dick Whitmer. He's from David's. I recently, for some reason, had to count the number of countries that had placed their stamps in my passport during those years, and it was 45. That doesn't make my calling any more interesting or any better or any less interesting or any worse than anyone else's. It's just my calling. And so for those 12 years, I was involved with seminary leaders, the cream of the cream, in 45 different countries, to a great degree on behalf of David's church. I continue to teach in 2 extraordinary countries. So from Connecticut, from above the Cromwell Pizza and Pasta store, or restaurant where my office is, Tuesday through Friday, I'm on Zoom now because of coronavirus, teaching significant numbers of Colombian church leaders who are themselves scattered across Colombia because of COVID. And this morning, they're leading their churches in beautiful, responsible, spirit-filled, thoughtful ways across a pretty big country, a country of 50 million people, Colombia. And there's a little bit of David's church in them. Honestly, there is. And every year I travel to Beirut, Lebanon, another of my favorite places in the world. And I teach students who come from 8 to 12 in any given year, Middle Eastern countries. All of them are Arabs. Half of them are out of Muslim backgrounds, but they've become followers of Jesus. Some of them have to move to the margins of the classroom when it comes time to take the photo, because if that photo were to circulate, their lives would be taken by the folks back home who are family to them, but deeply committed to Islam and ashamed of them as followers of Jesus. And then they return to Sudan and Egypt and Iran and Iraq and Syria and Lebanon itself and Palestine and Jordan and a number of other countries, and they lead their churches, and they're leading their churches this morning. And you know what? There's a little bit of David's church in them. There really is. Do you know that about yourselves? It's extraordinary. I think when you care about the future and the mission of God in His world, you do two things. You sow seeds and you plant trees. And then you step back and you say, God, I've done what you've asked me to do. Now please make it grow. And I think that this congregation, this quarter of a millennium old congregation, has been exceptionally faithful at sowing seeds and planting trees. When we're in Connecticut for half of the year, we worship at a church where we are so well shepherded and so well pastored that I have never known such spiritual community in a church context in my adult life. And the name of our pastor is Solberg, Scott Solberg. He's Brooke and Ruth's oldest son. Seeds were sown, a tree was planted here, and many of us shelter in its shade and give thanks to our Father. This church has been exceptionally successful and, more importantly, faithful at sowing seeds and planting trees. I'm 61, and so I'm just into that section of life where you get reflective about how much you have left to do and how much is behind and how you got where you are. And I've been thinking lately, was I ever discipled? People use that language nowadays, it just trips off our tongues. I was discipled here. Although Brooke would have been embarrassed, Ruth would have been embarrassed if anyone had mentioned that name. It sounds so special and holy and even technical. But here, my entire family was loved into the kingdom. In this space, not in this particular building, but in this space, the Bears were loved into the kingdom. And seeds were sown, and trees were planted. And I lift grateful hands to God for what happened here. The world is full of flash-in-the-pan Christians and flash-in-the-pan ministries and flash-in-the-pan ecclesiastical trends. But David's church has not been a flash-in-the-pan. For 250 years, steadily and faithfully, the way good farmers learn to do, seeds were sown and trees were planted and prayers have been lifted saying, God, we've done what we know how to do. Now you make it grow. And if there's any satisfaction in my heart this morning, and there's a lot of it, the thing that I can grasp and name this morning is gratitude that God has been faithful through some very high highs and, frankly, some very low lows to keep this community, this body, this church, and this space a place where seeds are sown and trees are planted. And then we wait, and He does the thing that He does. I think that will continue for a long time past the 250th anniversary. And it will be a delight from whatever distance I find myself to just look on it and say, thank you, God, for being faithful with these, my people, the people who believed in me, the people who have continued to believe in me, and others whose lives have become attached with mine. Thank you for people whose horizon is a long one, whose patience endures, and in whose presence your persistent and persevering spirit has been faithful for all these years. Amen. Alan.
David's Church is a missionary church, and we support and love our missionaries and send missionaries. And we weren't able to get greetings from all of our missionaries, but we were able to get some short video greetings from some of our missionaries, the Chubbs, the Moggers, the Depews, the Hotleys, and also Pastor Sergey from Belarus. And we're going to show their greeting. I would just say, as you see Pastor Sergey, remember to pray for Belarus and the things that are happening there right now. So go ahead and you can show that video.
So did you know that David's Community Bible Church has been in Lycans Valley for 250 years?
That's amazing.
It is. And you know, for 23 of those years, they've been supporting us here in Costa Rica.
Wow, thank you for your faithfulness to us.
And for your influence in reaching people in Asia and Africa.
Through the Latino workers that we serve.
And you see God's faithfulness
for 250 more years.
In Lycans Valley and beyond.
Congratulations, David's Community Bible Church.
Hello, partners at David's Church. Congratulations on your 250th anniversary. We are Larry and Linda Depew with Ethnos 360, serving in church planting and Bible teaching amongst the Simba people in Bolivia. Thank you for your prayers and support for over more than 40 years. May God continue to use you and bless you.
Hello, friends at David's Community Bible Church. We're the Hotleys serving with Child Evangelism Fellowship. We just want to congratulate you on 250 years of God's faithfulness. We really appreciate you all and thank God for you. So congratulations and thank you.
Good morning, everyone, and greetings from the Chubbs. We just wanted to say congratulations to David's Community Bible Church on 250 years of faithful ministry and service to God. And it has been such a privilege for us to be a part of that through extension, as an extension of the church here in Mexico. And it's amazing to look back on such an incredible legacy and to be inspired by that legacy moving forward, that we would continue in the footsteps of those who have gone before us. And it's been so refreshing for us to come home to a church where the truth is taught in a world that hates the truth. And so keep up the good work. Let us press onward together, and let's do this. Congratulations.
Dear friends, congratulations. 205 years is not only a big date. This is also evidence of God's faithfulness to His people. Your church has gone through difficult times and still exists today. For us in Belarus, when we are going through difficult times, it's also a hope. We want to thank God for your faithfulness and love for us. This is very, very precious. And please pray for us that we will not only get through difficult times, but also grow spiritually. We hope to see you again in free Belarus.
Well, we are so thankful for our missionaries, aren't we? This church has always been a very outward-focused church, a missions-focused church. A large portion of our budget every year goes around the world, and then several people as well just give kind of just straight to the missionaries as well. So that what a blessing to see the gospel going forth around the world. Would you stand with me as we sing "And Can It Be?" Hymn number 203 if you want to use your hymn book. The lyrics are also in your bulletin as well. And we're going to sing verses 1, 3, and 4 today. Let's join our voices together. To death pursued. found in sin and nature's night. Thine eye diffused a quickening ray. I woke the dungeon flamed with light. My chains fell off, my heart was free. I rose, went forth and far. Every voice, amazing love. How can it be that thou, my God, shouldst die for me? No condemnation. No condemnation now I dread. Jesus and all in Him is mine. Alive in Him, my living head, and clothed in righteousness divine. Bold I approach the eternal throne and claim the crown through Christ my own. Sing this out. Amazing love, how can it be that thou, my God, shouldst die for me? Just your voices, let's sing this out. Amazing love, how can it be that thou, my God, shouldst die for me? We serve an amazing God, amen? Amen. You can be seated this morning.
Thank you, Pastor Christian. Great singing today. Well, after Pastor Solberg moved on from David's, Pastor Parsons came. And Pastor Parsons was here for just a brief time, here less than, or just about 1 year. And after Pastor Parsons left, Pastor Meck and Pastor Schmidt came to lead us. And that's where we're moving into now, those years. From 1988 to 1993, Pastor Meck, Stephen Meck, served here as pastor. He met the love of his life, Diane, in high school, and together they raised 3 children. And today they enjoy their 9 grandchildren. They ended up serving with New Tribes Mission in Mexico and had been involved in various church ministries. It was under Pastor Solberg's preaching ministry that Stephen's love for study and teaching of the Bible was launched. Pastor Meck was ordained by Davids in 1988 and served as our pastor until 1993. Steve and Diane currently are enjoying retirement in South Bend, Indiana. Pastor Meck could not be with us here today, but he sent this letter as a way of greeting us. This is what he wrote. He said, Diane and I were so much looking forward to the 250th anniversary of David's Church this past May. We anticipated sharing memories of ministry together and rejoicing in the faithfulness of ministry that God has continued for 20 years into the 21st century. May Jesus Christ be praised. Without going into details, COVID has changed our plans to be with you today. We look forward to attending a worship service with you when we make our next trip into Pennsylvania to visit our family. We will keep in touch with Elaine. I could always count on Elaine to help me when I was in overload mode. And that goes, I think, for the current staff as well. I don't know where she is. She's probably out planning the meal and different things happening right now. Oh, no, she's here. I told her if anything happens, just text me. I got my phone. So there it is. We're all in overload mode right now. But Pastor Steve Meck could not be with us tonight, but passes on his greeting there. But Pastor Schmidt, who served with Pastor Meck, is here today, and I want to read his bio and have him come and share with us. Pastor Schmidt was served here at David's from 1989 to 1994. Following his graduation from Moody Bible Institute in 1989, Dan married his wife Kelly and began his ministry here at David's as our youth pastor. Dan left our church in the fall of 1994 with 2 toddlers and a baby when he followed Steve Meck to the South Bend area to accept another youth pastor position. 31 years later, he and Kelly have 5 children, 7 grandchildren, and together continue to faithfully serve the Lord. Dan is currently serving as campus pastor for the Windsor, Colorado location of Foundations Church. And a big thank you to Pastor Schmidt for being here. And as his name came up, there are several former youth that remember you fondly as their youth pastor, and your impact on David's is still here, as many of those folks still worship here at David's. So, Pastor Schmidt, come and share with us now.
All right, I see Sparky Director back there and all kinds of things going on, but wow, incredible. Yeah, I just got some stuff in my eye. Sorry about that. Boy, David's Church, congratulations to all of you here in this building right now. Phenomenal. And I just want to say thank you just for how you loved myself and my wife and our 3 little kids, and now it grew into 5 kids. We're in South Bend, but as we started here at David's Church, just the church loved on us. They accepted us. There were some challenges. I remember going to consistory meetings after playing floor hockey downstairs, and but we've had several things that we were able to work out. But again, it was just so real, driving over the mountain, coming back into Millersburg, and just the flood of memories, going down Union Street, the gazebo in the middle of town, and just being out here in this area, the Grove over there. Just my mind has just been overwhelmed and flooded, and just because of this church and how it accepted myself and my wife, it's been an incredible church experience that has launched us to 30 years of ministry, and that's because of how well we were loved here. So again, thank you so much for taking time to love and accept us and invest in us, and what a privilege to be back here. And I love your theme of great is thy faithfulness. That was one of my father's just favorite songs of all time, and just hearing all the history again. It's so cool to look back and see the faithfulness of God over 250 years, but church, we're not done yet. And I know you know that, and I love what Pastor Allen said at the head. Man, you love what God has done, but the best is yet to come, looking ahead in the next decades. And I just want to encourage you that even when we don't feel Him, even when we don't see Him, we know God is at work. We can have a global pandemic, the building gets shut down, but the church continues on with power and force. So guys, never give up. Never give up. We live in a crazy world, and the church is the hope of the world. God doesn't have a B plan. The church is God's A plan. And who is the church? Every man, woman, boy, girl, whether you're in single digits, double digits, approaching triple digits, wherever you're at, you're part of the body of Christ. And as the body of Christ, we need each other. We look different, act different, but that's just the beauty of it all, how God has a purpose and a plan for everybody here. If you're still breathing, if I'm still breathing, He has a purpose and a plan for why we're here. And I just want to encourage you all, never give up finding your gift, your talent, your ability that God has given you. Never compare with other people, but how has God designed you to keep taking the message throughout the Lycans Valley and beyond? A verse that has just really challenged me recently from 2 Timothy 4, and I just want to pass it on because it's easy to look back over 250 years, and I agree. When I'm at home, I'm like, man, I'm going to my first church 250 years, and they're like, wow, were the Indians there in teepees? And I found out they were, I'm like, I want to check this out and see what's going on. So I can't wait to take those videos back and say they were, But Paul, The Apostle Paul, man, crazy guy. He had all the head knowledge in the world, but it wasn't until that road to Damascus that God gripped his heart. And he did a 180. And Paul is in his final days. It's in 2 Timothy, and he's writing. And when somebody is about to die, these were some of his very last words before he was executed. I know I've been in rooms with lots of people, and their final breaths, their final moments. And a matter of fact, I learned how to do that through Pastor Steve Meck. He's an incredible man that taught me so much. So many of the things I learned to do in this church, I'm doing 31 years later. But the last words of somebody, you kind of lean in. What is it they're going to say? I want to grasp something. And listen to what Paul says here before he was executed. His last words, his last letter, 2 Timothy chapter 4 says this: I fought the good fight. I've finished the race. I've kept the faith. Kept the faith. He didn't say, I've been perfect. I've never messed up. He said, I fought the fight. We're in a battle. We're in a battle. Keep on fighting. Keep on fighting. I know there's parents here, grandparents here, aunts, uncles, where just relationships might be fractured. Kids might be running away from God or whatever else, but you keep fighting. You keep fighting. You keep fighting. And finish the race and keep the faith. So with David's church, again, teenagers here in this room, kids that have endured this service, man, I applaud you. I think all the kids should get the food first in the Grove. You got to let the kids go first and eat the food first. And kids, you can have my cupcake. Take 2. Okay? I'll just say that. So take 2. And I'll be in trouble by Danny later. But anyway, I just want to say, never give up. Never give up. There's 3 things. Never give up reaching out to the people of your influence, reaching out to the people in your neighborhood, reaching out to the kids on your soccer team, reaching out to the people wherever you run into people. Never give up reaching. I love seeing Common Ground out there. That is phenomenal. You're reaching out to the Lycans Valley. Never give up reaching people for Jesus. Never give up teaching people. I love that Awana Clubs is running strong here. Approved workmen are not ashamed. Study to show yourself approved, a workman who does not need to be ashamed. Never quit teaching. But more than all of those, never quit showing. Never quit showing the unconditional love of Jesus Christ. No strings attached. His unconditional love, his unconditional acceptance, and his unconditional forgiveness. That's game changer. That's life changing. That's what kept church alive for 250 years, and that's what will keep this place alive for the next 250 years. So church, I want to encourage you, never give up. Never give up. You're reaching, you're teaching, you're just showing God's love. And David's community Bible Church. There's so much more I would love to say. Love you all. Appreciate you all. Thank you for the love. Thank you for your prayers. Thank you for how you've impacted just thousands and thousands and thousands of lives over the years. And my challenge to David's Community Bible to Church, as you go for year 251, is this: to bring the extraordinary life of Jesus to a lost and broken world. Blessings.
get better and better with each song. I don't know. Whew. Well, our next greeting comes from two pastors, Tim Jewett and Pastor Gary Becker. I'm going to read both of their bios, and then we'll just roll both videos back to back. But let me read. Tim Jewett served here at David from 2001 to 2012. Tim's introduction to the Precious family here at DCBC was as a member of the Lancaster Bible College's traveling music ensemble called the Solomon, which performed in the Grove in 2000. He served as David's director of music beginning in 2001. Tim writes, "It was a joy and a privilege of my life to serve and grow and grieve and rejoice with the body at David's until the summer of 2012. Tim is currently calling Seattle, Washington home. His day job has recently become a remote one, guiding new users through implementations and educating them as they adopt new technology. Music remains a precious place in Tim's heart." Fortunately, Tim could not be with us today, but he has sent his video greeting that we will see in a moment. Also, Tim served on Pastor Becker's staff, and Pastor Becker served here as senior pastor from 1999 to 2013. He is currently the founder and director for Biblically Balanced Ministries. His desire is to enable others in equipping people and churches to demonstrate Christ's love through balanced living and balanced ministry. His pastoral experience began in a small urban church in northern New Jersey and continued in various suburban areas, eventually serving as senior pastor of David's from 1999 to 2013. He and his wife, Diane, live in Lancaster, Pennsylvania, have 4 grown children and 11 grandchildren. Interestingly enough, I don't know if you know this, but Pastor Becker and myself have a lot of commonalities. We're both from New Jersey. That's one. But his college overlapped with my own father's college. They went to the same college, graduated within a year each other, knew each other as while they were in college. And I also was able to attend Gary's church when he pastored in Lincroft, New Jersey. So again, we just see these connections in the body of Christ and the kingdom of God that are so amazing. So we're going to show both of these greetings, first from Tim Jewett, and then after his video greeting, we'll just show Gary Becker's greeting, and then we have another special presentation to give.
Hi, everybody, and congratulations. 250 years. I know that no one person there is actually responsible for the 250 years, but what a cool benchmark to be celebrating. What a great thing. It's so nice, frankly, it's nice to have a bright spot in 2020, and it's been a very weird year, but I'm so glad to be able to join you for this celebration, even in this way. Christian, thank you so much for the invite to be part of this, and I just wanted to share with you, I was asked to share maybe just a reflection, and there's so much to reflect on, so many bright spots and moments. I think of doing puppets in an RV on a trip to Arizona and New Mexico with Pastor Becker, and a whole slew of us went out there to the Hopi and Zuni tribes for our times of choir rehearsal and preparation for events, and my goodness, so many wonderful times in Awana, jumping around and just praising together and celebrating and laughing, and the times together on youth trips, and times together in Sunday mornings, and just hugs shared, and hammers, nails hammered, and wood sawn, projects done. There's so much to reflect on of meaningful times together, really building body and relationship, and affirming that. Thank you so much for being that to me for 11 and a half years as I served as your director of music. Those were great years, and I'm glad to have been a small blip on that 250-year stretch. An interesting flag in the sand in that long history actually is marked in a kind of a cool document that some of you might have seen. I believe it's from 1798, maybe 1795, somewhere around the late 1700s, written in Pennsylvania Dutch on parchment paper. there's an agreement that we found in the basement of the church while I was there. It was sitting in an old safe. I'm sure someone else had found it, years before. It was clearly a meaningful document to us. But there was a time where we were looking to clear out some stuff from the furnace room behind my office, which sat back behind the old sanctuary. And in it was this large safe, which we ended up moving to one of the classrooms off the large fellowship hall. And one day, because we didn't know how to get into it, no one knew what the combination was, I went down there with my big plastic cup. Some of you might remember me carrying around a plastic cup. I always was drinking water out of it and stuff. Well, I took that cup one day down to the safe, dried it out and stuck it up to my ear and put it up against the edge of the safe and practiced my safe cracking skills. Also, it's the first thing I put on every resume. Excellent safe cracker. And so over the course of that morning or so, I was able to get 2 of the 3 numbers, only to find later in the day, as I was celebrating with Elaine my progress, we opened up the key box in the old office to find a little old piece of paper with 3 numbers on it, 2 of which were quite familiar to me because I had spent the morning figuring them out. Turns out the safe combination was documented. It was just sitting on an old piece of paper somewhere. We opened that up, and boy, when we found that old contract, that was a pretty neat moment. That contract, I think, was dividing land between our church and the Salem Lutheran Church across the street. I can't remember the exact amounts. It might have been like 52 acres divided into 2 plots of 26 acres or something. But what a cool thing to see, how the history, how time has built on itself to bring us to the place where we are today, and being the city on the hill, continuing to shine love and light into the valley and into communities. I trust that continues in each of your hearts and each of your lives as you go out into the world and share that love, share that light, bring truth into these places where it's easy to be so flooded with darkness, especially in times like we live now. So thank you for the light you've brought into my life, for the joy it was to be part of that with you. Really excited for our paths to cross again one day, hopefully before too long. All right, everybody, thank you so much. Congratulations.
Diane and I are sorry that we can't be with you all today at this very special occasion of David's Community Bible Church. The unique history of David's is always something that I have told people and shared with people, and is a great opportunity of seeing what God can do with a church. We often think of different things, and one of the things that often comes to mind is King David. Whenever I think of King David, I of course think of the church, and the expression we used to have for the church, which was, it was a church with a heart for God, His Word, His people, and His world. Another remembrance that I have of David that often brings me to prayer is in my office hangs the picture of Don Klinger's expressions and pictures of Millersburg that was given to me when we left David's. And so it's a constant reminder to us to pray for you. The prayer requests that we get from the prayer chain also remind us of you and encourage us to pray for each one of you in very special ways. We are so thankful for those years of ministry. And I think the Apostle Paul expresses most clearly what I would think at this particular point and always have thought. I give thanks to my God in every remembrance of you, always praying with joy for all of you in every prayer. Because of your partnership in the gospel from the first day until now, I am sure of this, that he who started a good work in you will carry it on to completion until the day of Christ. Indeed, it is right for me to think this way about you all, because I have you in my heart, and you are all partners with me in his grace. Lord bless.
Well, as I mentioned earlier, we do have one more very important presentation, and we are so honored and pleased to have Senator John DeSanto with us to do that in person. And I'd like to invite him up to the stage. He is our senator, our state senator. He represents the 15th Senatorial District here in Dauphin County and Perry County. And he was born in Harrisburg. He's a local guy. He's one of us, and he's here to present a presentation. I also like to invite our consistory chairman, Bruce Walter, to come to receive this from Senator DeSanto.
Well, thank you. Praise be his name, now and forever. I'm I apologize for being walked in here like a pezzo novante, and I'm Italian, and that's a derogatory term that means big shot. And this is not my first visit up here. I've been here 3 times before, and Pastor, your words were so moving because I am a man of faith, and I'm happy to be here. And what a voice of power back there. That was impressive. We're in difficult times right now, and I appreciate your prayers. I get a little emotional, I apologize, but I'm fighting the good fight. And as a senator, I have the ability to direct certain funds and grants around the district, and I was happy to support the school here with some money. And I only support faith-based schools. I've supported Jewish schools, Catholic schools, Christian schools, because we're in a fight. I'm sure this has all been preached to everybody, so I'll be brief. But it's so important to pray for me as I pray for you, and to give me strength to fight the fight that I'm trying to fight down in Harrisburg, because there are a lot of forces that consider us to be a force of evil and a force against acceptance and so on and so forth. But I just want you to know I'm doing the best I can with your support to try to keep our ability to practice our faith in this country as we see fit. So thank you very much. And I know the cupcakes, you mentioned that, so I'll try to be brief. I don't even want to read this, honestly. It's a lot of whereas, therefore, on behalf of, but now therefore, the Senate of the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania rejoice with David's Community Bible Church as it recommits itself to the spiritual ideals and traditions which have sustained it for 250 years, offer best wishes for continued service to God and humanity. So on behalf of the Senate, congratulations. And I forgot the other half of my comments. The reason I was late is our son's getting married, and we have our future daughter-in-law and in-laws at the house. So I'm paying a price for practicing my faith, and I'll leave it at that coming up today. So thank you for having me.
Well, remembering my New Jersey roots, I can tell you this: it is a blessing and not to be taken for granted to have good men and women serve us as our leaders. And as you said, we need to pray from this pulpit, from the pulpits of this community. We need to pray personally and in our churches for our leaders. God has placed them in authority over us, and it's important that we support them. And it's a lot easier to pray for them when we know that they are people of faith too. And we are blessed to have that. We should never take that for granted. So thank you so much for coming and taking this time on a very busy weekend for you. So, well, it is my duty to be the anchor man here and get this over with and make the final remarks. And believe it or not, I was talking to Pastor Christian. I said, I don't know if this service is going to go long. I better have some things to say here more than I thought, because we're probably going to be done quick. But of course, as you know, my recollection of time and timing when I'm standing behind this thing is way off. So of course we filled the time, so I should have known better. So I will keep my remarks brief, but it's important I start with thank yous. There's so many thank yous to say. So many of you came from afar. Pastor Schmidt came from Colorado, and Corey, who had to leave us to get back to Fox News Channel in Phoenix, came from Arizona, and many of you traveled in. We're so gracious for you to be here and make this a priority here. And your flexibility to go from our May date to our date now here in September, thank you so much for making this a priority. And not just that you're here now, but every single person that spoke here, or even on the videos, are still an encouragement to us. They didn't just serve here and said, okay, we're done, we're moving on. They have continued to be an encouragement to the staff, to the people here. As they've said, even as they spoke to us, David's is still a big part of their lives, and they let us know that and encourage us. That's a privilege of being your pastor. I hear so much of this through email, through cards, through their greetings. Sometimes I feel to pass that on to you, but all of these folks continue to pray for and love and encourage us here at David. So thank you for that. Thank you for Bob leading the choir and the amazing work that you did with these voices. So many good voices, but not all of them are good voices. He did a great job pulling them all together. I mean, it was great. People pay money to hear this kind of singing. So what a blessing it is, and a lot of that is due to your direction. And they love you. When we say, Bob's going to come and lead us, people say, okay, sign me up. I want to be there when Bob leads. So his legacy is going strong here. Thank you to our committee we put together to plan this. Bruce Walter, Tammy Briggs, Jill and Brian Snyder, Elaine, and the pastors worked hard to pull this weekend together. Thank you for their leadership, especially for Elaine too. She deserves a special commendation in the hard work that she's put together and the joyous spirit that she's had through all of this, even assigning pews and figuring out overflow and making all these details, which were overwhelming. Who said that? One of the pastors, I think Pastor Meck. Overwhelming details. Thank you so much. Even during now, I've been getting texts to let me know what's happening after this. So thank you for that. Thank you to all of you and those who have gone before us. We stand on the shoulders of those who have gone before us. And this week, this isn't a safe thing to do for a pastor, but I did it anyways. And that's to look back at your funerals that you've done. And for whatever reason, I pulled out the file thinking about those who've come before us. And I've been here 6 years. My anniversary was last Sunday. It was my 6th year anniversary. So 6 years. In that time, I've done over 30 funerals since I've been here. And many saints we've laid to rest, and they've passed on to glory. But so many people that, even in those 6 years, the legacy that they left, the foundation that they laid here, God has blessed David's very uniquely in sending so many good people here, good, godly folks. And if we spent some time thinking about it, I think of Don Klinger as we stand in this building, who designed this building, who I'm told spent weeks trying to get that red right behind the cross. He just had to get that right. They repainted because he knew what he wanted. Folks like that we don't even realize what they paved for us, what they left for us. And we are so blessed to have them. So we're so thankful for those who have gone before us. A song that goes through my head at times like this is an old choir anthem that we used to sing in cantatas. That's not just a Millersburg. We talked about, I know Corey's not here anymore, but cantatas, yeah. And we sang this choir anthem. It sticks with me, and part of the song goes like this. It says, we're pilgrims on the journey of the narrow road, and those who have gone before us line the way, cheering on the faithful, encouraging the weary, their lives a stirring testimony to God's sustaining grace. Surrounded by so great a cloud of witnesses, let us run the race, not only for the prize, but of those who have gone before us. Let us leave to those behind us the heritage of faithfulness passed on through godly lives. And then the chorus goes like this. Oh, may all who come behind us find us faithful. May the fire of our devotion light their way. May the footprints that we leave lead them to believe, and the lives that we live inspire them to obey. Oh, may all who come behind us find us faithful. And that's what this weekend is about. We're celebrating God's faithfulness to us. But the real question as we leave today and go on to have a great meal and fellowship time, but the question that should resonate with us is, are we faithful to Him? He's faithful to us, no doubt. But will we remain faithful? Will we carry that torch that's been passed on to us through 250 years? And will we remain a bright, shining light of the gospel and of Jesus Christ here in this valley where God has placed us? That's the question that we should be thinking about. And just to sort of echo what Pastor Schmidt said, of some of those commitments, I have some of the same written here in the notes. The things that we want to commit to in year 251 is to continue to live for God's glory. 1 Corinthians 10:13, whatever you do, whatever you eat or drink or anything you do all for the glory of God. May David's be known as a church that does everything for the glory of God. Secondly, a commitment to God's word, His inerrant, infallible, all-sufficient, authoritative word. And as was said by many of our speakers, that's getting harder and harder to do. 250 years ago or whatever, it was a little easier because our values and biblical values aligned, but we know that is now sort of separating, that we want to be committed to God's word and the truthfulness of God's word, and many times that'll cause us to have to take a stand where it's uncomfortable for us, where maybe we don't want to take a stand. But we're going to have to do that as believers in Jesus Christ. But David's will continue to be committed to God's word. We'll be committed, thirdly, to growing strong Christians, to pouring our lives into you. That's what David's was known about. That's what we've heard in almost every one of our speakers. Just as a plug for next week, our small group startup. So if you're here and you are not signed up for a small group, grab a bulletin on the way out and call the office and say, I'd like to begin attending this small group, this Bible study group. They start this week. Sunday schools start next Sunday here, and our small groups start. Please be a part of that. And then fourthly, a commitment to reach the world for Jesus Christ. That is our goal as believers. Acts 1:8 tells us that we are to be his witnesses wherever he's places, Jerusalem, Judea, Samaria, the ends of the earth. Our Jerusalem is Millersburg. We're to be a bright light here in Millersburg, but not just here. We're to shed that light and spread that light all over the world. And as leadership here, speaking for the staff and our consistory, we are dedicated to pray for that and to seek God's vision for us going forward. New programs, new things that we want to do in this community. We have a very ambitious building program that we will be unveiling soon to the church, where we want to build a gym building and classrooms. And the reason we see this as important is we want to position ourselves to be able to reach this community for Jesus Christ, a community that lacks some of these things. Some of our kids going to our school systems, over 50% are on free lunch and government lunch. And you've seen how our communities handled the coronavirus. We want to position ourselves to be a light to our community, to build a community center that can be used by the children of our community. That's a vision that we have. You'll be hearing more of that as this year progresses. But that's what our leadership is committed to, because again, that question, the truthfulness of God's faithfulness towards us, we're going to sing that in closing in a minute, but then that question, how are we remaining faithful? So pray according to that. Praise God and thank God for his faithfulness to us, but pray in accordance to how can we remain faithful to him as well. So Pastor Christian's going to come now and lead us in our closing hymn, our theme for the year, Great is Thy Faithfulness, and sing with all the gusto you got, because this is our theme.
Stand with me as we sing hymn number 43, Great is Thy Faithfulness.
Great
and a peace that endureth. Thine own dear presence to cheer and to guide. Strength for today and bright hope for tomorrow. Blessings all mine with 10,000 beside. Let's sing this out. Great is thy faithfulness. Great is thy faithfulness. Morning by morning, new mercies I see. All I have needed, thy hand hath provided. Great is thy faithfulness. Great is thy faithfulness. Great is thy faithfulness, Lord, unto me. What a faithful God we serve. Amen. Amen.
And another thank you to our accompanist, our pianist, and our organist. Thank you so much for serving us today. My heart is full. Is your heart full? My heart is full today. My stomach's not full right now, but my heart is full. So that's why our last thing we need to do is talk about our meal, our fellowship meal out in the Grove. Come one, come all. We have plenty of meals. If you didn't sign up, that's okay. Go ahead and grab a meal. Because of COVID stuff, the meals are prepackaged. So you'll go out, you'll just grab one, and you'll go ahead and sit down, and everything you need will be right there in the prepackaged meal. Again, if you didn't sign up, that is okay. Please grab one. Eat anywhere. If you want to come back here and eat in the air conditioning, that's fine. If you want to eat out in the Grove, if you want to take it home and come back, go for it. Whatever you want to do with the meals. If you don't want to go out to the Grove, get one of the ushers that are standing in the back there to say, hey, can you grab a meal for me and bring it back? Because, you know, it is a little, you have to be careful walking out there on the grass and things. So if you need to grab an usher, grab one of them and say, I need a meal. And they'll be glad to run out and get one for you. Again, feel free to eat that anywhere on our campus. And then come on back for 2 o'clock. 2 o'clock, Brian Snyder will be here to go through our history. And he is going to take his time and add all the things he wanted to add in the other night. He's going to add them in, and there will also be a time for questions and answers as well. You're going to be blessed by that. Brian has put in hundreds of hours into our history. He knows the ins and out and the documents and all the history, so I know that you will find that interesting. If you can't come back for that, it will be live streamed. You can watch it from home, and it certainly will be recorded and put up on our Facebook and website, as well as this service as well, if you want to watch that as well. Also on the way out, grab some merch, mugs, pens, wooden nickels. Grab them on the way out. They're right here. Feel free to grab them and take them home as a souvenir of our time. There are also Crocs there. If you'd like to order one of those, there's an order form there as well that can commemorate our 250th anniversary. So before we head out and enjoy lunch together, I'm going to ask Pastor Solberg if he would pronounce the benediction in closing for us.
You can stand with me, please. Just remember one cupcake. Can I exchange a meal for 2 cupcakes? I thought of a great hymn that encapsulates 250 years. The church's one foundation is Jesus Christ, her Lord. Her charter of salvation by water and the word. From heaven he came and sought her to be his holy bride. And with his blood he bought her. And for her life he died. And now the Lord bless you and keep you. The Lord make his face to shine upon you and be gracious unto you. And the Lord lift up his countenance upon you and give you peace, perfect peace, both now and forevermore. In Jesus' name I pray. And God's people said, Amen.